Right, the big one with the Armada. Now remember on this one, it's always going to be like the biggest reason leading up to the Armada, why the Armada failed. It's going to be linked to Spanish relations. It's going to be linked by reasons it happened. It's going to be linked to reasons why England won, all right, or why it failed. So pay attention to that as you go through. That's where the questions come up in this one. Right, so the build up to war. So we're going to finish the Dutch revolt bit here. So this is the third part of the Dutch revolt, and the reason why I put it in with the Armada because it links quite nicely to the Armada, and especially with the Treaty of Nonsuch, which we'll get into. So the Dutch Protestants, the Treaty of Joinville happened in '84. Now Elizabeth can't avoid this confrontation now because Spain are going to gun for England at this point, and the Dutch go to England basically offering her the rule of the Netherlands, but she didn't actually want to depose Philip to do this, so she refused. But she did sign the Treaty of Nonsuch, very important because this means England and Spain are pretty much at war because Elizabeth says she will directly help the Netherlands in this war against Spain. So again, just to clarify, Netherlands is owned by Spain. They're rebelling in this Dutch revolt. Elizabeth sent like mercenaries and money, but she hasn't actually sent an English army. Now she's going to do that. Okay, and that puts them directly in conflict with the Spanish. That's why it's so important, and really how this war starts, 1585. So England would send an army of 7,400 troops to work with the rebels, and this is Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, is going to command them. So again, I think in one of the mock papers I gave you, Robert Dudley is part of that. So make sure you're aware of what Dudley does. So Drake is off raiding, as he does. He's raiding the Spanish New World, disrupting this flow of resources. Philip's angry. He's going to invade. Elizabeth's getting involved in the Dutch revolt. It's all happening in 85. It's going to happen. Now, Robert Dudley in the Netherlands. So he isn't really given that much money or supplies. It doesn't go too well because he accepts the title of Governor General, which Elizabeth isn't happy about. She doesn't want Dudley to replace Philip or anything like that. So she's not happy with him taking the Governor Generalship of the Netherlands. In 86, so Duke of Parma's there. Remember, he's like this quite good general who's been really pushing the Dutch back. Now, Dudley and the English forces, they kind of slow the Duke of Parma's advance, and they take forts outside Zutphen, for example. But the English lose one fort when it was handed over by Rowland York, and he goes to the Spanish along with Sir William Stanley. So this looks really bad for England to the Dutch. The Dutch are like, who are these guys just giving away our forts and just jumping on the Spanish side? So again, really not looking good here because the Dutch thought, right, can we trust Dudley? His people are just handing things back to the Spanish and then jumping ship. So initial problems there. In 87, so Leicester comes back to the Netherlands because he wants more money and men, but he still doesn't have it. But he does, and write this down, this is for me one of the most important things, and it links heavily to the actual Armada. He causes Parma enough problems that Parma is unable to take the deep water port of Ostend. Now, in Ostend is so important because this would allow a fleet to come into dock and safely load soldiers. Without Ostend, the Armada, they have to put anchor in the open ocean, right? And they have to take little rowing boats from the big ships to the shore to pick up troops. This leaves the Armada very vulnerable. And what we'll look at is how Drake uses that by sending in his fire ships. So think about how we can link these topics. The deep sea port and being denied Parma is very important to the failure of the Armada. And then in 87, Elizabeth recalls Dudley. So it's all going to happen now. The reason why it hasn't happened so soon is Drake singeing the king's beard in 87. So I know in the mock, a lot of you kind of got confused and didn't really understand that this was the same as the raid on Cadiz, right? That's the same. Singeing the king's beard is Drake's raid on Cadiz. So Spain are planning the Armada. They're building supplies. And Elizabeth orders Drake to attack the Spanish navy. He sails into the harbour, which is Spain's most important port on the Atlantic coast, and destroys 30 ships and a lot of provisions. This is so important to slowing down the Armada and disrupting and destroying its ability to invade. Drake then attacks other coastal provinces. Remember, Portugal's part of Spain now, so they're attacking the Portuguese bases, and he's going to attack treasure ships. He only captured one, but the fact that Drake is attacking these treasure ships means that Spain had to stop building up their armada and send ships after him to stop him. So Drake is so significant. Honestly, please make sure you know this. And I've picked out the key points there. If you know them, you should be able to give a good answer to anything on singeing of the king's beard. He is so important to disrupting this whole process. It delays it by a year. Look at what I've highlighted. Make sure you're writing that down, and because that year delay gives Elizabeth longer to prepare, longer to build their ships like the galleons. Right, so why did Philip launch it? Now, I'm not going to go through that. You can pause it and have a look, but again, this is like the whole decline in Anglo-Spanish relations. We've looked at that you can just go back through my YouTube and have a look at the previous sessions to highlight that. But there, if you ever get a question of why the Spanish Armada was launched or why did Anglo-Spanish relations decline, there's your key there. So, Spain, 130 ships, close to 2,500 guns, 30,000 men, largest fleet ever. They are going to sail up to the Netherlands, get Duke of Parma, get him onto the boats, and then land his army in England and destroy Elizabeth and take over. Right? That's the plan. We'll remember that problem though when the Armada goes up to the Netherlands. The problem being the lack of a deep sea port. So Drake's raid on Cadiz, these had not only destroyed ships and provisions, but destroyed the barrels that hold the food. So the Spanish arrive with rotten food. They don't make good enough barrels and replace them, and they've got real problems with their supplies. And they don't even have enough cannonballs. So again, significance here. Think about why it's important. The Duke of Medina Sidonia, he's got no experience in naval warfare. He actually says he doesn't even think they can win. He doesn't even like sailing. Whereas England have got Francis Drake. Well, it's technically Lord Howard, but Lord Howard allows Francis Drake basically to make a lot of the decisions. And Drake is so experienced. He's proven his worth. His crew are very capable. They've been doing this for years in the New World. So think of that. If you're using somebody like Duke of Medina Sidonia as an example of why it failed, make sure you're emphasizing how England, on the other hand, had very good leaders. Spain, again, had no large ports in the Netherlands, so they couldn't put their big ships, the big carracks, the huge bulky Spanish ships, they couldn't get them into dock easily. It would take a long time to lower the smaller boats and sail the soldiers back and forth. You've also got people like John Hawkins. So Hawkins was like he was like a hero to Drake's mentor. He had advised Elizabeth to build these fast maneuverable warships called galleons. They're built in the 1570s, and they have a huge advantage because they can easily reload. They've got more experienced crews, and they're smaller than the big Spanish ships, but they are faster and quicker, so they can get broadside far faster and fire their cannons first. It doesn't matter how big you are in the sea. If another ship can fire cannons faster and quicker, it means you're going to be blown out the water before you can use your heavy guns. So the galleons were so important. There wasn't actually that many of them, but I think generally the English just were more experienced sailors. So an English galleon had more cannons per ship. They fired further. Again, that's important. If the enemy can't, shoot at you and you can shoot at them first, you're going to win. They only had 24 galleons though, but again, they are important. So again, the fact that there's only 24 galleons, if you have got a paragraph of why it failed and you're using galleons, your judgment might be it was significant, but overall not the main reason it failed because there wasn't enough of them. But again, so that's how we can use that, guys. England sailors, again, a lot of experience. You've got Drake and Howard, English ships. So there's a stat for you: 6 times faster the amount of cannonballs in battle compared to the Spanish. Gives them a huge advantage. Fire beacons are placed along the coast to, alert the English when the Spanish are coming. So they're well prepared. They're capable of meeting this force. So why was it defeated? Preparation. Again, Drake disrupted Spanish preparations because of the raid on Cadiz. Again, I know it's repetitive, but these are the stuff you need to know. 30 ships lost, provisions lost. England have an extra year. They've got beacons on the coast, so they're well prepared. You've got tactics and leadership. So the Spanish plan is flawed, relying on the Duke of Parma at the same to arrive in Calais at the same time as the Armada. It was never going to happen. There was delays in communication, which meant they weren't there at the exact same time. It meant delays. It meant waiting. It meant the English had more time to prepare and disrupt. Duke of Medina Sidonia was useless. Don't say useless, put inexperienced commander. Philip had ignored the advice of advisors on the best plan of attack. English used fire ships. The fire ships were so important for breaking up this crescent formation that the Armada uses, so it shattered that strong formation. And Elizabeth just doesn't interfere. She just lets her commanders take over. She lets Howard, she lets Drake just sort it all out for her. And better ships, as we said before, faster, more manoeuvrable. And the weather. Now, again, the weather was the final straw for the Spanish. But again, if you're thinking of importance, yes, it did shatter the rest of the Spanish fleet. But I think the English were proven far more capable than the Spanish believed, and I think the English were already in the ascendancy and winning this fight before the weather ended up blowing the Spanish fleet onto the rocks around Ireland, Scotland, as it went across, around the Isles. But yeah, so just think about how you're going to use each of these factors. And that's the Armada, right? So I think we should be on to key topic 3 next time. So again, make sure you pause, go back through, and that should be pretty much everything you need on the end of the Dutch Revolt and the Armada.